Last time out in our mid-size luxury SUV comparison test, Karan, Akash and I pitched the BMW X3 against the Mercedes-Benz GLC and the Lexus NX 350h. Now the thing is, once the video went live, there was a common query in the comment section. It was a complaint rather. Where is the Volvo XC60? Where is the Audi Q5? Well, the thing is, those two weren't available then. But now they are. And we've got both these SUVs with us today. So, would the inclusion of these two change the pecking order? Would it affect our final verdict? Time to find out. The moment you step inside the Volvo XC60, well, be ready to be bowled over because this cabin is easily the best in the segment in terms of fit and finish and quality. Everything in here, the plastic, even this wood finish over here and this wood finish on the center console, the soft touch dash, the soft touch on the door panels, everything screams quality. And I think the only product that comes close to it is the GLC. But even the GLC has some hard plastics, but this cabin, it's really hard to falter. So if I have to pick a winner in terms of just fit and finish and build quality, I think the XC60 is it. And what I like about this cabin is also the neatly integrated cabin design, the dashboard design, everything is clutter free. And you've got big AC vents over here, you've got this contrast stitching. The interior is finished in beige or white sort of shade, and there's another option which is charcoal black. So there's no walnut brown or anything else, there are just two interior options. This is going to be hard to maintain, but I think it looks very classy. And of course there are more classy touches like this crystal gear lever over here. And there are also these big buttons on the dash, but these are for volume controls and your playlist, and also you can use the defogger settings. But overall, I have to say that this cabin is easily the best in the segment. Now let's talk about the gadgets and gizmos that the XC60 packs. Now of course, everything is stacked in this 11.2 touchscreen. Now this is bigger than before, which used to be 9-inch in the previous version, and this Volvo claims is crisper, and of course it is more responsive. That is actually the case, but it kind of sticks out from the dashboard. The previous one was nicely integrated, but this, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But anyway, in terms of functionality, it is great to use. It is a bit annoying because all the functionality is packed in this touchscreen, including the AC settings, so that is really annoying. And I think it should have had physical buttons, which you will see in the Audi. There are plenty of those. Now the other thing is, of course, it is powered by Google, so that means if you want to access Google Maps, it comes quite handy. You don't have to connect your smartphone to it. Having said that, you also get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connectivity, but that's wired. You don't get wireless connectivity with this system, which is a bit of a shame because this is apparently the latest update that the XC60 has received. Now the features that I absolutely love in this SUV compared to the others is, first is the sound system. It is Bowers & Wilkins. It is a 14-speaker sound system, sounds amazing, and I think it is a match for the Mercedes' Burmester sound system. It is really phenomenal. And the other thing that I love about the front seats is the fact that first, they are very comfortable, very cushiony, and they sort of cocoon you. And the best part is they come with seat massaging feature. Now of course, in the previous comparison test, we said that the Mercedes GLC gets it, but that one gets very limited features. This has extensive settings for your seat massaging system, and it is quite comprehensive in that sense. Well, this one is far better than what Mercedes offers. On the whole, in terms of creature comforts, I think the Volvo is up there with the best, or it's probably is the best in this segment. But now it's time to jump to the rear seat and let's see if it has the measure of its main rivals. First things first, getting inside here, it is a bit of a task because the door opening is quite narrow. But once you are sat here, well, actually there is a lot of leg room, and everything in here feels quite airy and quite spacious. Now I have to bring in some numbers here because this is not the longest wheelbase here, even though from the outside it looks like the longest and the biggest car. but the GLC is still the car with the longest wheelbase. So this and the X3, they have identical wheelbases. Now, of course, like I said, there is plenty of room. You feel quite comfortable here. The seats are very nice and cushiony. Although I have to say the backrest, it feels a little hard, just like it was in the GLC. It's not very cushiony like it's in the X3 or even in the Lexus. Although in terms of seating space, well, I'm feeling very comfortable here. Very nice touches. Again, a lot of leather, and everything in here screams luxury. Now it also gets 4-zone climate control. So at the back you have got the AC controls over here. So if you want to change the temperature, you can do it individually, and you have got AC vents in here as well. But they're pointing towards the sky, they're not pointing towards the passengers, and yeah, that is a bit of a weird thing. Now of course you also get these AC vents on the pillars, so they are quite efficient and they are pointing right at you. Now in terms of what's not so great, there are no window blinds. Secondly, the seat is quite low and the under thigh support is not that great. So that is missing in here. And you've got two USB type C ports, but they are tucked in really low. So again, not very practical. And the transmission tunnel, well, it is okay size. We've seen it with all the SUVs here, but this is on the lower side. But third passenger can sit in here for very short duration. So it's not that practical. Of course, there is an armrest over here. It doesn't feel as robust. It feels a little flimsy for sure. But again, the quality, the fit and finish is easily the best in here. So if I have to rate it in terms of overall space and comfort, I'd say it's somewhere between the GLC and the X3. Now the Q5 is a generation old car in here. The new model is already out in global markets, and this one definitely feels its age. Now after the XC60, this definitely feels like a big letdown. But before that, I have to say that I absolutely love the design of this interior. It feels minimalistic, it feels classy, and it feels typical Audi. You have got all the controls falling in your hand perfectly. There are these big knurly buttons. They are quite good to use. There are these big chunky buttons as well. So everything is quite accessible and practical. But the biggest fly in the ointment here is the quality and fit and finish, because everything is so plasticky in here. Everything is dark, everything is dull, and like I said, it feels like a generation old, and it is a generation old model. Now in the Volvo, we already saw that the screen kind of sticks out, but it doesn't feel like an afterthought as much as this one does, because this definitely feels like someone has retrofitted a touchscreen just for the heck of it. Now in terms of functionality, of course, it has a lot of functions and it is quite crisp to use, I have to say. The Audi interface is quite easy to use and the menus are very easy to navigate through. But like the Volvo, it doesn't get wireless connectivity for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And overall, it doesn't get a lot of functions as well. It doesn't get ventilated seats at all. In all the other cars we have seen, there is seat ventilation, there are massage seats, but this doesn't get any of that. The steering wheel, it is quite nice to hold, and like I mentioned, it is typical Audi. The rim is quite thin and small and feels quite sporty to hold, but everything around it feels so plasticky and cheap. These stalks, well, they are too plasticky. They feel like they've come out of a Volkswagen. Same goes for the paddle shifters. These paddle shifters, well, they don't click with the sort of tactile feel that you'd expect in a car that's this expensive. Now coming back to the features, of course, like I said, you don't get a lot of features, but it does get 3-zone air conditioning, so you can set the temperatures at the front and at the back. But again, in terms of creature comforts, I don't think it's a match to even the Lexus for that matter, because like I said, it feels quite old and quite tacky, to be very frank. So overall, I have to say that this Audi, well, it's seriously lacking in terms of build quality, in terms of fit and finish, and in terms of overall list of features and equipment. I think this is in a desperate need of an upgrade, which, like I said before, has come out in global markets. So we desperately need it in India. So I think our original decision to leave the Audi out of that comparison, well, it actually makes sense now. But now let's sit in the back seat and see if it can redeem itself. Now things at the back in the Audi are not that bad, to be frank. It is quite spacious and it is quite comfortable. Aside from the Lexus is the smallest wheelbase over here, but in terms of overall space, the knee room and leg room, well, they are quite decent. Even the headroom is quite okay. And Of course, you sit in a more upright position as compared to other cars, and the floor seems quite low, but it is quite comfortable, and I think I wouldn't have any problem even if I'm chauffeured around. This feels quite comfortable, to be very frank. Again, like the Mercedes and the BMW, this also gets window blinds, even though these are manually adjustable, which is the same with the X3 as well as the GLC. So that is a nice touch. And overall, even though there are not a lot of luxuries or creature comforts, you don't even get those side AC vents. You've got AC vents over here, you've got the temperature control over here, but very flimsy, and again feels very outdated. You don't even get USB type C ports here, you get a 12-volt socket instead. Again, very ancient, it doesn't belong in a car in 2025. Now the transmission tunnel is also quite huge, quite large, and third passenger, well, they can't sit here. It is going to be very uncomfortable. Plus the seat, if you see, there is no under thigh support in this one. But for the passengers on either side, there is decent under thigh support, and I think it's better than the Volvo for sure. And I also like the cushioning. It feels soft, it feels very comfortable. It's not firm like it is in the Volvo and the GLC. So this is quite nice in that regard. But again, the letdown is these hard plastics. It doesn't feel like a 70 or 80 lakh rupee car. It definitely feels old in that respect. But again, if you don't much care about that, I think this is a very decent place to be, and even now the Q5 can hold its own in this department. The Volvo XC60 is the brand's best-selling vehicle ever. Well, yes, that's how popular the XC60 is around the globe. Now, coming back to this car that's offered in India, well, now I'm driving it, and it is available in a single trim. So you just get a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol motor with this SUV, and it's good for 247 bhp and 360 Newton meters of torque. It also gets a mild hybrid system. So overall, these numbers are quite respectable, and it is actually matched for the GLC 300 that we had on test earlier. Now, having said that, in terms of outright performance, well, it doesn't feel as quick as the GLC. Yes, it is fast. Yes, it has a lot of grunt, but it doesn't feel as exciting, or it doesn't have that get up and go attitude of the GLC. This still takes things at a relaxed pace despite having the firepower. Now, in terms of overall refinement, again, everything is phenomenal, and it definitely feels like a luxury car. You are isolated from the world outside, and not a lot of engine noise filters into the cabin, but some of it does. Now, that was the case with the GLC as well, but in this, it doesn't seem that the engine or the vehicle is enjoying that, because in the GLC, the noises are quite sporty, so you tend to enjoy that as well. But in this, it feels a little strained. It doesn't want you to rush things, basically. So it is a very comfort oriented setup. But yeah, in terms of outright performance, it is quite quick. It is not GLC quick, because this one does 0 to 100 in around 7 seconds, 6.9 seconds to be precise. So that's not as fast as the GLC, but overall quite respectable numbers. And if you're behind the wheel, the performance is pretty decent, to be very frank. Now, the standout thing about the XC60 is its ride quality, because it is phenomenal. I mean, this is so soft, so supple. It takes up everything in its stride. Any sort of undulation, you're not going to feel it. Good roads, bad roads, everything is kind of dealt with without any problem. And I think the comfort quotient of this car, it is absolutely the best in the segment, because the suspension is tuned for Indian roads. You can throw anything at it and it's not going to feel it at all. And trust me, I took it on some really bad roads, but it felt like a Land Cruiser, to be precise. It was so soft, it would just take up everything so comfortably. The suspension does a mega job of isolating you from all those road imperfections, and I think it's fair to say that this has the best ride quality of all the SUVs that we tested in this segment. I think the only product that comes close to it is the X3, but even the X3 on really sharp bumps, it definitely sends that thud through the cabin. But this one, it doesn't do any of that. The insulation is phenomenal. But there is a trade-off, because in terms of handling, Well, this isn't that great, and I think it's probably dead last in that department because everything is soft, everything is comfort oriented, even the steering is light. The suspension is actually excessively soft, to be very frank. And if you go around a corner, you can feel there is a lot of movement. Even on straight roads, you can feel there is that floatiness in the suspension. It's never settled, it's always sort of moving. So if you're going really fast, even in a straight line, you definitely expect some sort of tautness or some sort of firmness from the springs. But this, well, it doesn't have that. And since it doesn't even get adaptive suspension, so you're stuck with that one standard setting. So if you're a keen driver, well, you're not going to like the experience from behind the wheel. So yes, as a driver's car, this is not it. But if you just care about the ride quality, well, I think this is definitely the best in the segment. Like the Volvo, the Audi is offered in a single trim. That means it is available with a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol motor, which is 45 TFSI. Now this doesn't get any of the latest tech, in the sense there is no mild hybrid system offered with the Audi. Now, what I love about this engine and transmission is the fact that it feels quite old school, and it is meant for someone who enjoys driving, because the performance is really great. It is the fastest accelerating SUV over here, and it definitely feels it. You enjoy driving this SUV fast because the engine, it produces a very sporty, a very raspy noise, and even the transmission, it is paired to a 7-speed DCT gearbox, so that's phenomenal as well. Power goes to all 4 wheels, so there is traction, there is grip, so you really enjoy driving it, at least in a straight line. Now coming to the handling, it is a mixed bag again, because this is primarily tuned for comfort, but I think it is closer to the GLC than any other car, so that means it is more of a driver's SUV. So the steering, it's quite direct, even though it feels artificially stiff, but it has got good heft to it. And then you have to talk about the ride quality. It feels very supple, very absorbent, and it is quite nice actually. So it is also primarily tuned for comfort. Suspension is soft, and you can definitely feel it. So going over all these bumps and bad roads, not a problem at all. Although I have to say that the ride quality is probably the third best here, behind the Volvo and the X3, because even though it is quite supple, it feels a little noisy, especially at low speeds. If you go over a big bump, it feels a little noisy for sure. And the suspension definitely feels a tad noisier compared to those two especially. All told though, this probably feels the most engaging SUV. I think it's a tie between this and the GLC. I think the GLC is a little taut in terms of handling, but this is right up there. And extra marks to Audi, because it is the oldest car here, so it gets analog dials. It feels quite last generation, and if you're someone who loves driving, well, you will definitely appreciate this sort of old school feel of the Audi's cabin. The steering is quite nice. You've got paddle shifters, quite responsive. You've got these analog dials, look quite cool. This is from, it looks like you're driving an R8, because I remember this tack from the R8. It looks quite sporty in that sense. And overall, it doesn't feel like a gadget on wheels, which is the case with all the modern SUVs. So yes, if you want something more mechanical in that sense, well, I think the Audi is going to be a great choice, especially considering the discounts that Audi India is offering right now, because this is an old generation. It's going to go out of sale very soon, and from what I hear, there are discounts up to 5 to 10 lakh rupees, so that makes it a very lucrative deal. And if you enjoy driving, this still is one of the best. It's time for the verdict, and for that we are going to go back to our original scoreboard, where we had a total of 5 parameters, which were brand power, comfort, features, driving dynamics, and X factor. Now, where do these two rank in comparison to those 3 on that scoreboard? So let's quickly find out. Now first, brand power, I think the Mercedes and BMW, they are still 1 and 2 for me. I think Audi would be 3rd and Volvo would be 4th, followed by Lexus. So in that regard, I think not much has changed. Now, in terms of comfort, there is a clear winner, and that is this Volvo, because in terms of ride quality, it is phenomenal. And if you are someone who cares just about the comfort part, well, I think the Volvo is now my pick, and this is going to rank number 1. As for the Audi, well, I think it sits even lower than the Lexus. So for me, this is dead last. Features, well, the Audi is still dead last because frankly, it is the oldest vehicle here. So it kind of deserves that position. Now, as for the Volvo, I think it neatly slots in between the Mercedes and the BMW. So that means it's number 2 on the list now. Driving dynamics, now that is an interesting one because in this, the Audi actually comes up not on top, but I think it is a solid number 2 for me because it is nearly as good as the Mercedes in terms of outright performance, but in terms of handling, well, it's not right up there. Now, as for the Volvo, I think it is dead last in that department because even though it has the engine, but the suspension, it is excessively soft and it doesn't drive that well and it's not engaging enough. Last, the X factor. Now, in that, the Audi is going to be dead last again because it's so old and it looks quite dated. Now, the Volvo is actually also nearly as old as the Q5, but this design has aged very gracefully and I think it still has that X factor. Although I'd say for X factor, I'd say the BMW is top, followed by the Lexus, and I think it goes above Mercedes, not below that. So it's number 3 for me and Mercedes is 4 and Audi is dead last again. In the end, these two haven't changed the verdict that much and the GLC is still the winner of our comparison test. But if you're someone who prioritizes comfort and luxury above all, I think the XC60 makes more sense. As for the Q5, well, we can't wait for Audi to bring in the new version because in its current form and shape, it's no match for its rivals. And even the new one, as and when it comes, will have its work cut out. But then, that's a story for another day.